In this case, strikes at the very core of our principles as Americans. I think that the case is very important because I think that the First Amendment is very important, and our freedom to speak out against wrongdoing in government is one of the hallmarks of our Republican democracy.
This case is about fundamental First Amendment rights in the workplace involving a plaintiff who was terminated from a government position for doing the right thing.
In this case, our client, Colleen Bradley, was an employee of a public entity, Westchester University, and spoke out against what she believed to be corruption and wrongdoing in connection with the budget process, whereby individuals at the university and at the state system generally were advancing this scheme that Colleen believed to be fraudulent. This case involves potentially 30 million federal and state and municipal public employees who encounter all kinds of things in the course of their jobs. And this case impacts what they're able to say in this country with the First Amendment right of free speech without being subject to retaliation by the government.
Colleen Bradley's case is very, very significant in the sense that our U.S. Supreme Court has established precedents on speech within the workplace and whether or not that's protected. That case is Garcetti versus Ceballos. And the court, since Garcetti in 2006, has really only addressed the First Amendment in the workplace issue in a case called Lane versus Franks, which is a case in which the court establishes and mandates that speech by government employees like Colleen Bradley should be protected. Those employees, because of their positions, are the only ones to know that government corruption is happening, government impropriety is happening. And that case talks about encouraging and protecting that speech. And where we are in this Colleen Bradley case is that there's a very dangerous Third Circuit precedent thus far in the case, which seems to ignore that mandate. And there is it appears, some dissension within the circuit courts around the United States on how Garcetti is to be applied, particularly when you get to speech that actually happens within the workplace.
In this case, the Third Circuit made a factual determination that Colleen was speaking as an employee and not as a private citizen, despite the fact that we had record evidence right out of the mouth of the defendant, her supervisor, that when Colleen was opposing what she believed to be the corruption, she was not doing so in the ordinary scope of her employment. A jury should have determined, based on that testimony, whether Colleen was acting as an employee or a private citizen, again, based on that record testimony. The court took it away from the jury and made its own determination based on its own subjective views.
This case, Bradley, represents an opportunity to put a better framework around how courts in this country are supposed to apply the Garcetti test to determine whether the employee was actually speaking within the course and scope of their ordinary duties.
So you all now are asking the Supreme Court to take up this case. What do you see as the implications or the consequences if the Third Circuit decision is allowed to stand?
I think that the Third Circuit decision in the Bradley case bodes very ominously for First Amendment jurisprudence and the effect that it will have on public sector employees. To me, it seems they're obvious. Of course, I'm not a government employee, but this decision affects me because I sure as heck want the government employee who is aware of wrongdoing in government to speak out about it and let people know. I think it was the great Justice Louis Brandeis once said that sunlight is the best disinfectant. Well, people who work in government are in the best position to shed light on wrongdoing that's occurring in government. And as a non-government citizen of this country, I certainly want those people in the best position to know what's going on, to speak out against it. Otherwise, we're all going to get ripped off until it's too late. So this case has very broad implications, not only for the 30 million people who work in the public sector that to which we referred, but to everyone, to all of us who count on public servants to act with our best interest. And when they see something going on that's not in our best interest, to shed light on it and call it out without having to be subject to retaliation, as the Bradley case involved.
So for my sake of my kids and my children's kids and everybody else, it is about doing the right thing. And if I didn't do the right thing, how do I ever live with myself?